Hello, welcome back. So in this lecture, we will start our discussion on Chapter 8. It's about input and output. And in our last lecture, we also uh, saw the example about file handling output. So that's also part of the input and output. So in this chapter, the major topics that we are going to cover is first, we are going to see the streams of data, character stream, buffer stream concept, okay? Then we are going to take a look at the usage of scanner for tokenization of stream of data, okay? Then we will take a look at the byte stream for structured data, okay? Yeah, so processing primitive data, okay, with data streams. Okay. So that's the topics, the basic topics that we are going to cover in this chapter. So first, yeah, so what is stream here? We discuss, okay. So here we view all the data for reading and writing as a stream, okay. So the definition for stream is a flow of data or information, and it can be represented with simple bytes, okay, or characters, or some complex object. Okay. In the Java input and output, okay, and we basically already saw two types of input and output. Is it standard input, output, input, output? Okay, standard input output like a keyboard and display monitor. Okay, so display and the file input and output. Okay, yeah. So you read a file, read from a file, and we write to a file. Okay, yeah. So Java I/O input output is that it opens up the stream of data. You can read input and write output. Okay, one chunk at a time. Okay, so like in this diagram shows is a source and destination. So source can be like a keyboard, can be an input file as a destination, can be display, can be an output file. Okay. Yeah. So, and the chunk of data. So data is in chunk, read in or write into. Okay. And so for string, we can have byte string. We can, so byte string, so not readable. So not human readable, okay. Character string, so ASCII, so that's readable, okay. Buffer string and object string, okay. And generally speaking, the process involves you open the string and you consume the string. So we do some processing on the string and then we close the string. And no matter what, is it all of this, we may run into input and output exceptions. Yeah. So for input, for file input and output, if you recall last chapter, we also discussed it belongs to check the exception. So we need to handle that. Okay, let's take a look at the simplest case is about a character string. So based on the name, we can see this string consists of character values. Okay, so like in this diagram shows that, so suppose you want to read a lot of words from a file, is it to some destination, is it to some collection to store at, is it? But then the string, if you take a look here, it will be letter by letter, so character by character. Okay, so it's a character. Okay. The string consists of character values, and there are two classes to handle file with character. Okay, file reader and file writer for reading and writing to the file, to file. Okay. File reader and file writer, so keep that in mind. And both of them are subclass. For file reader, it's a subclass of reader. Okay, so there is a supertype for all input character string in Java called reader. Same thing for writer, it's a supertype for all output character string. Okay, and there's a special character. So basically, for character, it's ASCII code. Is that? Yeah, ASCII code is 8 bits. Okay, so it's from 0 to 254, that 2 to the 8. Okay, so what this negative one means is it's basically the negative one means the end of the file. So this is a special character. So this is a simplest case about character string. And then the second type of string we are going to see is called buffered string. Because we can see that if we do letter by letter, character by character, reading and writing, each time if you read, it involves with dealing with the source and also with the destination. So there are a lot of overhead. So overhead is too much. Okay, so not efficient for handling. Okay, not efficient. Okay, and for buffered is, so it's kind of you store a number of letters at some place. We call it a buffer. Okay, we call it a buffer. And then you write it to some destination at one time, like here. Suppose this is one sentence. So you store this whole sentence in a buffer and then you write it to the file. So for the file, we write line by line instead of write letter by letter. Okay, because for letter by letter, you write each time you need to access the file. As is, the overhead is too much. Okay. And in Java, we have two classes handle that, called buffered reader and buffered writer. So we are going to see how we can use it for our processing. Okay. Okay, so that's the concept. Next, let's take a look at the example. Okay. Okay, so this time the example. The example is Java IO. Yeah, it is here. It's a Java IO character string. Okay, so let's take a look at this example first. And if we take a look at the first statement, we just call a method called read file. Okay, so you provide the file name and a character. And then we have a second method called write to a file. So basically, that's what the main does, reading a file and write to a file. So let's take a look what the read file does. So this is the method for file read. So to provide file name and the letter you are looking for. Okay. And so here we have this reader. Okay. And here we also have a string builder. we are going to concatenate all of the strings. Okay. And so here we use a file reader and associated with the file name, is to open the file name and store it in the reader object. And if you recall, reader is a stream that handles the character string. Okay. So here we deal with a character string for reading. So we use the reader type. Okay. And because here it deals with file handling, so that's why it's checked the exception. So we must handle that, or we need to throw in the method, okay, declaration. So here we handle it versus we don't do throw. So we have the try catch block, is that file not found exception. And this is to output the stack trace for the exception. And because it's handles character by character, so you call the method read. So each time to only read one character. Okay. If it is -1, that means the end of file. Okay. Otherwise, you can keep reading as that. But be careful, okay, what it returns an integer. So you need to cast it back to a character and then append it to the string builder object, okay, builder. So if it is not, you just append the original. If it is some you want to substitute, and then you append it with a substitute letter. Okay, so here we use this string, the angle brackets. Because it involves the file handling, it has this check exception we need to handle it. It may have some other scenarios that we haven't figured out that for input and output, because here it involves input and output, so that's why we put IO exception here. Okay, but be careful. Okay, we also catch the file not found exception first and then IO. If you reverse, then this will never get catched. Okay, because IO already cover file not found exception. Okay, and if everything is fine, is it? And finally, we also need to close the file, okay, to reclaim resource back to the system, okay, for other application to use. So don't forget that whenever we try to do file handling. So this will be executed. So you just close it, okay. But there may some reasons that can also fail because anyway to involve input and output. So that's why here we do the IO exception again. We put it in the try catch block. If everything goes well, then all of the string going to be concatenated, okay, and you return back the text with the replaced angle brackets. So that's what this method does. And then let's see, how does it handle write back? So pretty similar, that write back to the file, okay? Then for character writer, you use the writer object, so it gets the object from the file. And because this involves the file input and output, so we put it in the try-catch block, similar as the file reading handling, okay? And same thing, this will take care of some other scenario that we haven't prepared that for check the exception. And if everything goes well, we also need to close the resource. But for file handling, for file writing, generally before we close, we also call the flush to uh, um, make all of the streams in the intermediate places, okay, go back to the file, right? So that's why we call the flush first, that's recommended, and then close, okay? Because it involves file handling, so that's why here input and output, so here it involves input and output. So some exception can happen. This is checked, so we need to handle it. So that's why here we also, even in the finally block, we can also see, okay, so try catch block can also be used in finally block. Okay, finally block. Okay. Okay, that's about this program. And this program doesn't have a console output. It just changed the file. Okay, and you can run it after our lecture and see the difference about the file. Okay, so that's the information for this lecture. And we are going to discuss more in our next lecture. See you.